Welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And this week we return to our Video Nasties segment with Madhouse.
Yeah, we are taking a trip into the Madhouse. Just thinking of you with that hanky.
Rob has just witnessed me. I may have the hay fever. The summer spring is sprung, and we're going and feeling the sun's out, so everyone just assumes it's already summer. Right? Yeah, this is where I was going with that. And yes, I've already got hit by the hay fever, and it won't stop running. So yes, I've resorted to a hanky. And Rob loves the fact that I am turning into that old man.
Yeah,
fully
an old Victorian gentleman.
I will break my hip soon.
You will. Yeah, we are getting stuck into Madhouse from 1981, and we haven't been, to the Video Nasty section for a little while, have we? I don't think since this side of the year.
Was it Beast on Heat?
Maybe
was that the last one? The Beast in Heat?
Which, if you haven't watched it, go and check out our episode, because the film is pretty dog shit. The film is basically about some hairy man kept in a cage who just wants to fuck.
And Nazis.
But
not in a fun way.
not in a good way.
Not in the good way.
These aren't the fun Nazis.
Not all the good ways you know about Nazis.
Yeah.
No, none of that. I think that might have been the last one, but we could be wrong. We mess these things up all the time. We haven't been with our Video Nasties for a little while, but it's normally one of our funner features, I think. It's one we really enjoy doing, going through those 78 films on the Video Nasties list. I think we've probably only hit about maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah. We're not going to run out of content.
We have to. We're not going to run out. We've got a good one to go. It's like our must-see horror. We've got 100 films, and we'll be about 50.
Yeah, we'll be about 50
by the time we actually get through these lists of films. So plenty of content to come if you are listening to this.
If you are listening. And what better way to show your love than to hit that subscribe button, and please leave us a lovely review. We are, spring has sprung. It's here. We're going to be hanging brain whilst we record. So what better film than to cover Madhouse, which is directed by a Video G Asinitis, which
we probably butchered that. I think we're both laughing at the fact it sounds like it's like some. His name sounds like some dirty porn.
It does sound like some
video of Asinitis.
Video Asinitis.
Asinitis. It's like a doctor comedy porn.
It is, isn't it?
Italian doctor comedy porn.
Yeah, he just keeps falling around and fucking people back.
Look at my right in your ass.
Right in my ass. Oops.
No, you have Asinitis. I must do this. You need an injection to get that Asinitis out your system.
And just to talk about him, just to talk about Ovidio Gabriel Asinitis, born January 18th, 1943. Egyptian-born Greco-Italian, so that dude fucks dirty. Greco-Italian. This is what this is saying. So his films, a director best known for numerous B-horror films, including Beyond the Door from 1974, Tentacles, which I feel like I've seen the poster for that before, Madhouse, which we're doing today, and interestingly enough, though I'm unsure about this, Piranha 2, The Spawning, which I believe James Cameron is listed as the director for that, so I'm not sure what he's done there.
So I was going to say I don't know all the specifics of this. I do know that actually he had some kind of more of a producing kind of part in that film, and he is also known as the man who fired James Cameron.
Oh, okay.
James Cameron did not finish which is why his name is not sometimes appears and doesn't always appear, because James Cameron was actually fired from the final edit cut of the film. So Asinitis,
an absolute dog.
Asinitis is probably more going to be known in history as the guy who fired probably the most, definitely 100% the most financially successful director of all time.
So if anything, Asinitis was the spark, because James Cameron obviously got fired and was like, shit, I need to up my game. If I want to be like Asinitis, if I want to be the man Asinitis believes, then I need to fucking go. And we have I mean,
and then for that we have Terminator franchise. We have
Aliens.
To a lesser extent, the Avatar franchise.
Yeah, hey, we've got 5 of those films to look forward to.
I know. And the next one's apparently the longest yet in the film franchise. That's already fucking long.
And I like the way he's just discovered elements.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a water one.
There's fire now.
There's fire now. Yeah. Oh, fucking Avatar's so boring.
But yes, so but it looks good in 3D.
It looks great.
See it on a cinema screen and then forget whatever happened.
Yeah,
that's Avatar.
That's it. It looks good, but it doesn't fucking sink in. So back to Madhouse.
We did then Titanic as well, just the same way for sinking. You said sink, I thought Titanic.
And that brought it back, you know. Just like Asinitis, you know, you're thinking Leonardo DiCaprio with a young girl, you know.
Just like Titanic, that's the way this episode's already going.
Yeah, that's how it is.
We're already off on a million tangents, somewhat still related.
So Madhouse is a 1981 Italian slasher film. And I was a big fan. I didn't get the Italian kind of vibe straight off from the poster. I saw the poster, and I was like, okay, you know, we've got like a Rottweiler, we've got some girl with a knife. Maybe this is going to be kind of your generic slasher. It opens up with some weird lullaby being sung by these 2 kind of twin girls.
One thing I did like was the weird music, and the music was good. Like the but that opening music I actually found extremely unsettling. Like and it was oddly catchy at the same time, like a Rockabye Baby, sung in slow, almost orchestral manner,
and it was weird.
Yeah,
you know, and it opens up with that very classic Italian horror, like. Is this a dream sequence?
Yeah, dark scene,
you know,
girl rocking on a chair with her sister stood behind her, like staring at her menacingly.
Yeah, and then somebody gets their head bashed in.
Yeah,
it's always weird shit in Italian films. You know?
It is. I mean, that's one. Like, I did like that kind of open. The only thing I didn't like, which I didn't think was greatly shot that well, was the transition into the face smashing.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was quite poor. Like, I understand that this is. This isn't like a mega budget kind of obviously
budget of $2 million.
Yeah, so not really a huge budget in general. You know, I guess in the time frame maybe that's not a bad budget, but I still think I've seen people with smaller budgets do better special effects with. It's more the fact it goes like. It's really creepy, and I'd rather just say, like, although I understand people would be like, oh my god, look at that. I think the way that it cut, it doesn't even, like, cut so it keeps the face in line.
Yeah.
So, like, most of the time people would cut so they bring the brick, but the face is still there. But before she brings the brick, it's already
cooked,
the kind of the doll face cooked. So it's poorly cut there, where it should have been cut to have the girl's face and the rock kind of heading towards her face. But instead it cuts and you're already seeing the mangled before it even smashes. And I get it. It is meant to be some kind of a dream fantasy kind of odd, you know, relating to one being evil but one's face disfigured, which is really odd because obviously like later in the film I kept expecting to see either the disfigured girl being the one that got smashed in and the other one is actually the evil one.
I expected
it's a plot line at the very beginning that it sets up the idea that there's an evil one and there's a disfigured one, and then we get a disfigured one who's an evil one, but not disfigured because of this, but disfigured because of a completely different like disease they have. So you're like, oh, this doesn't. I'm not quite sure that this does have anything relating to the rest of the film, really. Except two sisters who are against each other.
But it's the 80s, so the way in which they're going to say that this person is bad is by having them be horrendously disfigured.
Yes,
you know,
of course.
It was a very of the time thing.
Yes, it's either that or be a Russian.
You're either that or a Russian, and you're getting shot by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
you know, like, those are your 2 options. You're either disfigured or you're Russian. So we do have Russian listeners, so we will not go any further with this talk. But then they'll be aiming the nukes.
Because we never offend anyone.
No, we never offend anyone. I mean, it's an interesting one because, like every kind of one of these Euro horrors, I guess you would say, which you know I love. If you've listened for a while, you know I got a soft spot for them. But you're always watching and you're wondering, is this dubbed, or is this partial dubbing, or you know, is it like, are people actually talking? And I kind of got the impression that this wasn't dubbed. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't think it's legit. That actually sounds like talking. Yeah, it is actually people talking. It wasn't dubbed in.
I didn't feel like it was dubbed.
No, it was actual. Most of this felt like it did feel very much like an Italian director directing an American film.
Yeah,
it felt very much like that, but it all felt like it was filmed as it's like it wasn't filmed in that really odd kind of
odd style.
Yeah, that odd Italian style we've gotten used to now, where they've decided to dub it, and a lot of it was filmed back in Italy and things like this. It feels like someone who's filmed an American film, but it's by an Italian director and by somewhat production of Italian in some way, but it's actually been done in America, like, or within an American, like actual American speaking actors and stuff like that. Not that we haven't had that in other films, but they've still sometimes had American actors, but still weirdly dubbed. Yeah, like dubbed over it with terrible, like,
and then changed the lines halfway through. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Or occasionally you've got one. It's like, I'm not even sure that was the same actor speaking anymore. Yeah, like that's a different person. It's so. Obviously, as this is on our video nasties list and things like that. I mean, to be fair, you sent me Madhouse, and I found it, and then when I went to find it and actually find the film, there was like 4 other films called Madhouse. Yeah, there's one that's like a 80s comedy.
That's the one we were talking about, obviously.
There's the 70s Vincent Price one, which apparently is actually quite like a weird hybrid kind of comedy horror kind of thing, which apparently is actually really good. Like, where I was like, oh, this seems interesting. I was like, no, I'm going to go for the one with the weird dog and the girl standing by him. I was like, the Italian one. So let's see what this one's like. And, it looks, from the outside, it looks quite like, oh, what is this about? But one thing that I found about this one, and also it's like representation on this list of video nasties, is the fact that you expect it to be quite exploitative, I guess, is what you get used to, and this one's really not.
No, I would say
it's got 1 or 2 scenes that push those boundaries. Other than that, it's not. It's a pretty tame.
It's tame for like a video nasty. Yeah, but I feel like for like an early 80s slasher, it does have some good kills. I like this kind of idea of this kind of sister who's broken out of this institution, and I feel like they build her quite well, because we get introduced to Julia Sullivan, which is probably the only time that you're going to hear the name be remembered correctly, and she's like this young school teacher at this deaf children's school, and she keeps having these horrid memories of her childhood. Like, her partner is also her psychologist, which is a really weird relationship. I was like, what the fuck? And then her uncle, who is this like local priest, basically is urging her to go visit the sister for some reason. Yeah. And they build the sister quite well, because they're talking about like she used to like have this dog, and like the dog would like bite me, or she would burn me. She would do all these horrid things to her. And when when we go and we meet the sister in the hospital, the sister's quite well hidden. They don't like show her face for quite some time.
Like the curtain.
But I agree. I expected, when you look at some of the other films that we've covered in this, The Beast in Heat was dog shit, and it was but it was it was like Nazis sexually torturing people.
It had major themes, at least. It had major that themes were like, okay, I can understand why people would be like, this is offensive to those themes, those people, and stuff like that.
Eaten Alive, Robert England is talking about ass raping young teenage girls, and there's crocodiles,
and there's some levels of gore and stuff like
especially
that,
especially from the 70s.
Yeah, and it's the same with like any of them. Evil Dead. That's grotesque, and over the top, and
occultism, all sorts. But this didn't really. It had some it had some kind of brutal moments. But
I mean, it's interesting that this is a slasher where
there was one bit later on where I was watching it and I was like, "Fucking hell!" and it had me creasing. And we'll talk about it when we get to it.
I think I know which one you might be about.
You know the bit about.
Again, I think that there is, if anything, it is mainly one scene that mainly in my head strikes out as the scene that would be like, that's probably why.
Yeah, which I think is the one I'm thinking about.
But it's odd, because it's like, you've got a somewhat kind of, obviously, like, that kind of slight dramatic thrillerish element about the sister and things like that. And then you've also got the idea basically that this kind of then becomes somewhat more of a slasher, in some way. But it's a slasher that mainly has a dog to serve as, like, there's no knife or axe or so it then leads them to have to, the almost more challenging part of having to use a dog in order to do it. And it's not that the dog isn't terrifying. The
Rottweilers are fucking dogs.
He looks creepy.
Yeah.
He looks like you wouldn't want to go near him.
Yeah.
The dog gives a very good performance in this.
The dog's a sterling performance.
I mean, the dog, although in certain scenes, the dog looks like it has no teeth to me. When you see it straightforward, I couldn't actually see the teeth. It looks like they'd been like, we're going to use you. You're pissed off at us because we took all your teeth out.
Yeah. What's his name? Assonitis is like, okay, we're going to have this dog as one of the main killers of the film, and they're like, oh, so everybody's gonna have the arm strap on to protect them. He's like, no, we'll just remove a dog's teeth.
We'll just
remove his teeth. That's fine. That'll be more humane.
I mean, to be fair, on these video nasties lists, like
they're
not very well known for having certain animal rights.
That is true.
Activists hate a lot of these films.
Yeah, dog dentistry.
Cannibal Holocaust was well known for being bad in terms of that, like cutting up creatures and animals brutal. And stuff like that. But luckily, and as we find out later, this one is much more of a animal friendly that they do not, because if they did that for real in the back one, I'm pretty sure that if one of the scenes later they would be in prison.
Yeah. I mean, let's kind of talk about the kills.
I mean, this one when we come to video nasties, a lot of this is going to come down to, as in, the violence that comes into it. Some of it could be the themes, Overall, the themes of this film are not really what was going to put it on the list. It's a fairly straightforward, it's a family, you've got, like you said about the sister, and you've got
the sisters. That
kind of setting the stage for a surprise party that kind of comes later on. And you've got these scenes that are mainly of Julia. We have, and even actually talking about the exploitation, even like in terms of like, so Julia's got like the friend in, her other teacher friend, the other one who does not look like a teacher and looks like she spends most of her day sat in the break room just slowly eating yogurt or something. But the main thing is that she has large breasts.
Oh yeah,
she's blonde.
She's blonde, she has large breasts.
So you fully expect there to be, you see her and go, well, you're clearly not here to be the intelligent character in this film. You're here, obviously, because someone's going to have dirty sex later on, and your tits are going to come out. Because she literally looks sad to have it. And although they do later on in her death scene put her in, underwear and a top, because that's just how you hang around your friend's house.
That's how you hang around your friend's weird derelict mansion house.
Yeah, her weird derelict mansion house, when she's told you that she thinks there may be a killer or a killer dog or something that's going to come around and kill you, and yet she's like, this is a good time to take my trousers off and go and sit in my underwear with my top, just my top on, and again, so then you're like, before she dies, obviously we're going to get breasts.
Of course.
The dog's going to
rip those buttons off.
Tear those buttons off and reveal you, and kind of
its eyes are going to go massive.
Like Carmen Electra in Scary Movie, that just kind of like out of nowhere. But again, even in terms of exploitation, I mean, that's the most sexualized it ever gets.
Yeah,
she never gets naked. She never gets a breast. This is me putting a thing for. We need to undo this madness. No.
Yeah, you only had one wank from the whole thing, didn't you?
And that was because the weird gummy dog turned me on.
A man enjoys what a man enjoys. I'm not going to judge. We don't judge here.
But yeah, it just dawned on me. I was just like, again, Italian directors tend to lean quite a lot into, the nudity, the sexuality,
they do.
That we've had with that, Nightmare in a
Damaged Brain.
I'm pretty sure. Always call it Nightmare in a Dog Brain.
Nightmare in a Dog Brain.
Or whatever it was, so I couldn't remember
Nightmare in a Donkey Brain.
I've literally now forgot what it was. To be fair, I was just going to say Nightmare, because it was called Nightmare in a lot of ones. But that one, leaned a lot into sexual themes. A lot of the other
New York Ripper
ones, we had a lot of sexuality.
New York Ripper, Cannibal Holocaust. Yeah, I'm sure every Italian horror. I mean, I would even go and you can. The brain. The brain's not working.
That's not an Italian horror.
That's not an Italian horror. I mean, it could be. The brain's not working.
Yeah.
Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
Sleepaway Camp does have a strange Italian horror sexual,
and it has a sexual underbelly to it.
Underbelly. Yes. I like that.
Well, there's a penis under the belly. That's the sexual twist in that one.
That is the twist. What else has it got to be? To be fair.
But it's so it's interesting that I think there's a lot of things set in here. Even with having like the boyfriend and stuff like that even the main character Julie, there's none of that kind of sexuality really.
No, there's not really much.
She is like literally her teacher friend is there purely at times is like it feels like all she does is to sit around and look fairly sexy, I guess.
Yeah, sensual.
She looks like she's a like that, but it never takes it any further. So it's just interesting with these ones. Again, video nasty. Like one of the things that if you're not going full on gore, then quite often it was because of sexual themes that they were banned.
Yeah, or religious themes. And there's not really. I mean, it's weird even because even with the priest, the religious stuff isn't played out at all. It's just like
he's played fairly not as just a guy who's the uncle, so he wants to see his family kind of, and he's using somewhat, I guess, of his religious nature is kind of pushed forward that he believes that they should be together. Early in the film, obviously,
but it doesn't really go anywhere with it.
No,
it's kind of odd because it sets up this opening where you do have this black kind of like background. The two sisters, one on a chair, and then one gets their head caved in. And you're like, okay, so straight off the bat, you're thinking, this is the twist. It is like Sleepaway Camp, where the Peter got killed, and that kind of thing. And that doesn't really come back into it. It's just basically like Mary is fucked. Mary's cooked. Mary is evil. Like, don't try and think too far into it. Maybe it was a good thing Mary's head got bashed in. Like the people, like Mr. Kimura would still be alive. The really horrendously stereotypical Japanese.
It's a really weird thing in that opening that. Again, like I said, the opening really did seem like it was setting that up. It felt like it was setting up that actually Julia was probably the mad one, and the other one is deformed, and therefore she's now mad because she was deformed. But at the time that actually Julie was actually the eviler one, like you felt like you were getting this weird sister. One's evil, one's maybe not as evil as the other.
Because they keep talking about, and they pepper.
It's their red herring of this.
It's the red herring. Julia keeps peppering throughout, like, oh, my sister, she used to have this horrid dog, and like I would wake up and the dog would be in my room like snarling at me, and then she would she would cut me and she'd scratch me and she'd do all this weird shit, and it's really psychologically fucked me up.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, are you sure? Like, did she really do any of that? Maybe you're just imagining it. You're scared of her. Like all of this kind of stuff."
You kept feeling like it was going to be twisted into actually it was you that was doing it to her.
Was doing it.
And this is you remembering it. Like you've repressed the fact that you were fucking
and you've like projected it that it will happen to you.
Yeah.
But it's just like
it just is. It's like that is the red herring of the film, which is oddly I guess if you're trying to do that, it's like it's good to, I guess, to set audience up and be like, this is definitely the film I'm watching, and then not be that. That is somewhat of my problem with the film is the fact that actually I would have rather seen.
I would have rather watched that.
I would have rather watched that than where this film goes, which it feels like that was the red herring set up to make us think that, and then it just completely goes in a not a completely different direction, because the one sister is still mad, but not in a nearly interesting way compared to what we think is going to happen. It feels like it's set up as one of those, we're really going to delve into that psychological more, when a lot of it is just saying it, but I don't feel like we get to see it enough. Obviously we get scenes of the dog in the room, scaring Julia, and we get scenes.
Well, the dog,
the dog is the main killer of the film.
I think there's kind of a bit of an even. There's a split of body count. So the first guy is just some random like security guard at this mental hospital who just gets mauled by this dog, and then Julia escapes. And then you get this fucking kid. I mean, that's pretty video.
The kid is the other one that's like a fear of like, because you've got a child who's like Julia's favourite like kid in class. Choosing her favourites out of the other deaf children.
Choosing
like these ones are all dicks, but this one's all right.
And it's weird the way in which they do it, because like, so the kid's playing frisbee with his dog.
Yeah.
And you can tell that the dog, the mysterious kind of evil Rottweiler. I mean, nowadays in the modern remake, it's going to be an XL bully. But in this one, it's the Rottweiler, it's the bad dog of the 80s, and you're like, okay, the dog's in the bush, he's throwing his frisbee, he throws his frisbee into the bush. His dog's getting killed.
Yeah,
but his dog
squeal of the dog.
The squeal of the dog, but then his dog runs away, and you're like, oh, okay. Like,
you don't see it. You're expecting to see like a mauled dead dog. You don't see a mauled dead dog, and then you're expecting to possibly like see that, and obviously all you actually see is the dog sat there growling with its gummy teeth.
Yeah.
And then just growling up at him, and then he's looking, and he takes like one step back, and then he's cut.
And then it cuts to an ambulance. And it's like,
and a body being wheeled away.
And you're like, oh, fucking hell, the dog gobbled him up.
But I'm not expecting that's the thing, you're like, even with the ones before it, it's all very cutaway. You keep on expecting to see. You see later on. You see a few more detail. I think
Mr. Kimura.
Oh yeah,
he dies before the boy. And I kind of watched. I loved Mr. Kimura because I was like, I feel like this guy just is born in like California and is complete. It just has an American accent.
Yeah.
And old Asamiotis is like, no, you need to do the most stereotypical racist Japanese thing. You need to do the Japanese voice and everything. And he has a scene where he's kind of like chased through this weird derelict mansion that Julia, and only Julia lives here. It's a
fucking huge
10-bedroom.
Enough that someone could be murdered in it, but I have no clue what's
enough that many people could be
murdered.
A
dog can bark at high level and someone doesn't realise that the dog is barking and growling and like in a house, any other estate, and you'd be like, where the fuck's that barking dog come from?
Yeah.
But Julia in several scenes is unaware that someone is being chased and murdered by a dog barking and growling.
Yeah, but the dog chases Mr. Kimura, and he gets like a broomstick, and he's trying to like defend himself. And there's a good part where he's kind of like in a cupboard where like a fuse box is or something like that. And he's done some tinkering earlier in the film.
Yeah.
And then he goes back there, and then Mary, the cook's sister, she's there, and she's all bandaged up, and she just like kind of stabs him in the heart. That's one of the kills that isn't a cutaway that we do get. But I feel like maybe that is Mary's only kill. I feel like outside of that, most of the dog's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Yeah,
and then that is pretty much it. Apart from the reveal of the
twist, the twist, a twist for a 44-year-old film.
Yeah, that twist that happens. Yeah, he's the only other murderer here, really, because obviously, we get. So the death of the child is obviously a major theme that I imagine would have partialised to why this film was banned.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the main one, but I think it is a partial reason.
You don't see anything.
You don't see anything, so that's the only thing that makes me think it still could have got away with that one. It is that theme, but it's not the only film to kill off a child, And if it showed him moulding the child, then that would be a different thing.
Yeah.
And again, some of the other Italian and exploitation films, they would have gone straight for it and fucking mauled the shit out of that child.
They'd have got an actual
boy
dog.
Wouldn't be able to hear what's happening.
They'd have got an actual dog to maul an actual deaf boy.
Yeah.
And just filmed it and been like, all right,
that's it.
That wasn't good enough. Get another one. They'd have done it like
Bring
10
in
times.
the next child. But yeah, so even after that, you get that really even I don't know why even the reveal of him being the killer felt like it just kind of came very suddenly and earlier than maybe I was expecting it to kind of play out, and we get that longed out scene when we reveal him.
Well, you get a little bit before that when you do get her friend's death.
Yeah.
Who does?
Apartment.
Yeah, you do. There are some quite good shots in that. And
hers is a little bit more actual show.
Hers is
one of the ones that I feel was possibly the most graphic, apart from the dog.
The dog. Well, it is very much her just being chased in short shorts and a tank top through this by the dog. But there was one shot that I thought was really cool, and it does have that Italian Euro horror where it has those weird zoom ins, random zoom ins. And there was one where she's she's done the best thing you can do to get away from a dog, is just close the door on it. There you go, film over. I've trapped you in a room. Done. And she turns down this kind of like long hallway, and you see Mary, and Mary is kind of like like walking down the stairs with this bloody, or like walking down this corridor towards her with this bloody knife, and it's like a really cool shot. But I kind of feel as if like for some reason they were like, let's have the dog do most of the killing instead of Mary.
Yeah.
And then you're right, they get to, after she just gets mauled by the dog, and you have that moment where you're like, I
liked a lot of the shots in this one, because the one when she's going down the stairs as well, I thought was quite cool. There's a lot of wide open shots in this film, which are quite work to kind of give the space around them, and sometimes obviously show like Mary hiding in different parts and things like that, which you've got her as like an overarching kind of like in the background.
Yeah, because you do kind of see her, like you said, hiding in certain moments, that kind of thing.
And the idea of, I guess it's somewhat of a different to take and have more of the animal doing, I guess, the killing kind of thing. I guess it just takes away from that personal kind of part of the killer that kind of makes you feel a little bit more distance for it. And when you've got several maulings in a film, I guess you just start to feel a little bit like this is just a bit samey after a while.
There's only so many
ways the dog can maul you.
There's only so many ways. I could also watch a dog chew a clearly fake thing and a person writhe around on the floor with a clearly fake dog.
And that's what I think hers works the best out of the bunch for me, because
it goes for the throw.
You throw and you get to see it actually tugging at something, and then try to actually.
This dog's just cracking off.
Just cracking off for it. He's loving it that much.
He's loving it.
But you get to see her kind of reacting and her like actually like die, unlike the ones when we either get a cut off from it or it just suddenly happens. So it's one of the more it's one of the more interesting like chase where we get a proper chase in the film. And I know the next one is a long, quite a long chase, which felt like it kind of. But the kills overall are still like we haven't got that variety. I don't think here. Like there's the knives and there's the slicing, or cutting or stabbing, and then there's a dog basically, and that's pretty much it.
And then we get our third killer, which was really. Like came out of nowhere because there's no build to it, and I was watching it, and so this priest uncle, Father James, I think he's called. He's carrying things into the basement of Julia's home, and the whole film you've barely seen him. Like he's popped up, going, "You need to go see Mary. Your birthday's coming up. Go check in. She's all right. She's in a mental institution. She's horribly disfigured." And she hated you for her whole life. Go and see how she's doing. She'll like you for her birthday. And he pops up every now and then, just like, how you getting on? You see Mary. Like he just doesn't really do much. And then he's just loading stuff into the basement for this surprise birthday party. And then I was watching it and I was like, oh, this is just like a throwaway scene. And then the landlord comes.
Or I thought it was him going to die. I guess.
Yeah, I thought maybe he's going to die.
His turn.
And when it almost, because it's shot, it's a during the day scene, So it
looks different. Yeah,
it looks different. And then he's helping, the landlord. The landlord starts helping him and carry this massive bag downstairs. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And they put it on the table, and then they're talking, and she's like, oh, well, this is heavy. It feels like there's a body in there. And he's like, well, there is. And I was like, what? I was like, this is so casual about it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he's the killer.
He's the killer, yeah.
And he's got an absolute class outfit, which is, the black turtleneck and black trousers. It's very dashing for a killer. But it's just really...
It's really weird.
Comes out of nowhere.
It does come out of nowhere. It's the horror trope of the normalist person, or maybe the one that seems the least insane of anyone, becoming the killer kind of thing. To completely be like, oh, we'll swap it on a head, we'll make someone seem completely standard, almost so much in the background that you almost don't even think about them possibly being the killer, and then they're the killer. I think the weird part is for most people watching this film is they're not expecting a twist of a killer.
No.
It doesn't feel like it's a whodunit.
It's not.
It is literally a Mary's the killer and she's going after the dog.
Yeah.
And therefore we need to get some resolution between the sisters. The only twist we're expecting is for Julie to be the killer. You know, to either be the killer or she's the evil one, and Mary's getting
revenge.
And she was actually, as a child, she was the abusive one. She was the, which we've already noted. I still think would have been it would have been the more interesting film. That's not a film that hasn't been done. To be fair, that basically has been done several times, but it would still be the more interesting film here because this dude just suddenly turns into going from the guy who was the straight-laced guy to going full balls to the wall, just fucking. I'm insane. I sing lullabies,
which hasn't. Apart from the start of the film, there hasn't been a motif.
No, so that was our little hint at the beginning. Someone's going to sing lullabies and they'll be fucking insane.
Yeah, and I was like, why are you just singing children's lullabies? Like this film,
if there was a lullaby every time there was a murder, you'd be like, oh, okay. This is sort of running along. Like, who's been singing that lullaby each
whilst
time?
the killings have been happening?
Mary's been singing a lullaby. Oh, it wasn't Mary. It was
him. Mary. And maybe we have the classic. Like Giallo black gloved killer, or maybe there's somebody else. But instead, it's just like, oh no, remember this guy?
Here's this body. I'm the one that's been collecting them up. Mary can't do that. She's too fucking. This is me, and I'm going to start singing you a lullaby while I chase you around in this overly
huge mansion,
which it feels like quite a long chase sequence.
It's very long.
The mad house lady that's been, that looks. She's the one that looks after the house, isn't she?
She's the landlord. Yeah. Maybe.
That kind of protects in Julie's giant mansion for whatever reason.
It doesn't make sense.
No, I don't really know why she's there, but he chases her up. Like, they go up flights of stairs, they go up for the thing. Finally, he catches it. Was it on? It is on a chair, isn't it? She gets onto a chair that he goes behind.
Well,
behind her.
So they're having this chase, which does. It is quite a long chase, and then
I'm losing track of where I was. I remember her screaming down when she saw the body, running through the stairs. Going up a set of stairs.
Yeah, she goes up a set of stairs.
Her fingers, she's hiding,
but she drops a shoe on the set of stairs, and then slithers back down, and then hides under a bed.
Yeah,
and you're like, okay. So you see him go, and he looks at the shoe, and then he's kind of you assume that he goes upstairs, and then she's under the bed. And then he just like pops down and says singing a lullaby to her.
He drags her.
Yeah. Then she runs out, and then she gets away, and she goes upstairs to this weird like sitting room she has at the very top of the house. And in my head, I was thinking whilst watching this, I was like, it looks as if she goes into a separate house or like another room that's hers, and there's a rocking chair, and she just goes into this thing, and she's like, well. I've escaped him. I'm just going to sit in this rocking chair now. And she sits down and she like looks like she starts to relax. And then he just comes up behind her and is like...
Yeah. That was the thing. I was so weird. I was like, why the fuck is
she you sitting down?
You've run around. Why you? That's why I was trying to in my head go. Why? I must be remembering this wrong. I was, why the fuck is she suddenly sitting down? She's just been chased. She thinks the best hiding place is to pretend to be on a rocking chair. Yeah. And I'm not going to get caught now.
I'm not going to get caught. I'm upstairs. It's like, it's this weird thing that just makes no sense.
Sliced.
Yeah. It's like a Oblivion character, like sitting down in a chair. Yeah. And then just like looking. It's...
that's what I mean. After all of that, she's like, "Oh, I need a rest now. I've been running too long. I haven't escaped him. He's still coming. But I'm
still nutted.
I am just gonna have a little rest.
I'm just gonna have.
And that's my death. Yeah, it was a really. I mean, she was a very odd character anyway. It's like he wanted every other character to be a little bit over the top, so we would least suspect the Vic, the priest. Least suspect him as the only person who was, I guess, giving somewhat of sanity outside of Julia trying to work out what was going on in her head.
Yeah.
Because she was over the top and talking about really random stuff and mentioning about Mary. Like, she just seemed insane, and she would sing little things as well. Yeah. It was like, what the fuck? Who the hell are you? Your landlady's insane. She could have been a killer, but it's an odd part because this obviously then builds into that final kind of setup for the surprise party,
surprise birthday party. It's funny because it's her birthday and Mary's birthday, and James, not Father James, sorry, that's her uncle. We quite haven't crossed incest yet. Her weird psychologist boyfriend is getting some speech, so he's like, I need to go to the big city and give my acceptance speech. I've only got one copy. I'll be back tomorrow. And then Father James comes and he says, it's your special surprise birthday. I'm going to blindfold you. And he's like, I brought all of your friends along. And then I was like, oh, you brought this random security guard, Mr. Kimura.
Yeah.
They just happened to die. They're not her friends. And then when they're downstairs and he removes the blindfold, everybody's there dead. And I thought that was quite a cool scene, and then Mary comes in as well. And then it just gets weird. Then James just stabs Mary.
Yeah.
And this is the point, I feel like, when Father James comes in, that asthmatismo is just like flying by the seat of his pants, because it makes no sense. He's like,
it doesn't none of it really matches up with why has he been setting up Mary with this the whole time. Why has he been talking? Never really feels like there's a main reason why he's the one to do it. Why is he why has he been doing that? Mary, we still know, is mad and insane. So why does he kill Mary? Like, after all this time, after all this setting up, why is she still? It seems like they make him be insane for the sake of being insane, so that he'll do anything at any time, and that'll make him scarier, maybe. But that's one thing I feel like he is not. It's scary.
He's not. He's wearing a turtleneck.
Yeah.
No man in a turtleneck is scary.
That's what I mean. He looks like a politician who's about to apologise for something he's done.
He looks like a politician
who goes on like a TV show who's like, I'm very sorry for the acts that I did to those many, many people over those many, many years.
But it's the thing in Little Britain, where he's like, I accidentally walked down that alley and accidentally slipped and pulled the man's trousers down, and his erect penis accidentally went in my mouth. And he's got his wife and kids there. He does look a bit like that. But it's just, I was watching, and I think I'm sure I watched this part like 2 times, because I was like, there is no way that they are doing an absolute dog shit, weird, nonsensical twist without him explaining why, without him at least going like, I did this because you did that. Just simple, like, so somebody watching this goes, what the fuck is happening? And they go, oh, that's why. It's shit.
But it's not, is it?
But he said it. But instead he's just singing.
He just
lullabies.
keeps going. There is no real, and
no
lots of people are like, oh, but it doesn't always need to have a motive. It doesn't always have to have a long monologue, things like that. And it's like, okay, fair enough. No, it doesn't. But in this case, it's almost more like it might be helpful to understand why he's done this, because the whole film felt like it was set up for a completely different film than what we've ended up getting.
Yeah,
it's one of those things that it literally feels like as if it's like someone in the studio came in and went, I feel like this sister story's been done. Let's do something else instead. Let's cut a different film into this film, and suddenly we'll match out later. You don't need Mary anymore.
Like,
get rid of her quickly.
So we've got to reshoot the whole film. Like, no, just change it.
We're just going to change the ending and just hope that everyone's like, that's fine. The other stuff, it's been done. Nobody will notice. They won't notice. They're watching a film. They'll be enjoying themselves too much to notice. Which, to be fair, that is
you more enjoyed yourself too much to notice.
I don't know. Like this one, I know. I think you said that you quite enjoy it. And for me, this one I found fairly lifeless. It felt like it didn't have enough. It was a slasher that didn't really have what makes a slasher fun. And I was also therefore my mind was set into an Italian exploitation film, and then I didn't get that. And then I somewhat enjoy the cackling mad nursery rhymes and the singing of the mad. In more of this kind of, this is so all over the shop. This is so unstructured that it's somewhat entertaining kind of thing. But even the story of Julia and stuff like that, it just wasn't playing enough for me. That it might have been if it had come to a more expected kind of culmination. Yeah. But instead it felt like we had long scenes of Julia like dragging on about this for them it to have absolutely no fucking purpose
It's
after
odd,
that.
you know?
In the third act it finally goes, you know all that stuff we brought up about the psychological intensity and Mary and how we need to bring that to an head. Fuck that.
Fuck that.
Sing some nursery rhymes, you know, and get singing and just get some fighting and then...
And you, random boyfriend / psychologist who looks about 50, who hasn't done anything the whole film... Why don't you drill into a dog's head?
That is the combination.
That's the video nasty part.
That's
gotta be.
It is pretty much the only thing, apart from possibly, yes, I understand, like the ripping of the neck with the dog. The dog is somewhat kind of violent, and the child,
the actual Father James's death is also kind of quite. It is quite bloody, but it's the one where you're like, okay, she's put like an axe in his back. And because of the way, apart from the fucking drilling into the dog's head, apart from that, the film has been, like you said, kind of tame. It's been a little gory.
Yeah.
So you think, all right, one axe into the back, he's dead, we're ending it. But instead, she just fucking hacks his back to pieces.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of blood there.
Yeah.
It's almost like they realised they had some budget left, and they're like, "Fuck, we need to spend."
It feels like they've saved a lot of their budget for the third act. But one thing is the dog scene.
Dog scene.
When he is like stuck in that room and the dog comes through and then the dog's head comes through the thing and he grabs the dog's head. Now, one thing is that I will say for this in terms of special effects is, for the most part, even when the dog was somewhat puppified in earlier scenes, it was actually very well done. Like it didn't massively look like it wasn't a dog necessarily attacking, because it was quite fast and quick. You know, and the intensity, you know, of certain things. Like, this is, Riz Ortolani? He did the score for Cannibal Holocaust and also did this score. And the scores are quite similar. Like, this is quite a big, like, kind of orchestral bits at times when it gets quite right. You know, and all of these things in this scene, like, rise up, and you've got this. So, when all of this looked really good before, and then suddenly we have... a dog puppet's head that does not look good. No. It does not look like the dog. It literally looks like they've got Basil Brush or something. Popped his head in through a door and gone, he looks like a real fox, doesn't he? Like a fox. Now we're going to fucking drill his head in.
Drill into it.
And, you know, it could be as close as basically, I'd almost like literally expected they had such a budget on this. If the doctor's arm had disappeared through the door, so he could be the puppet that he's also at the same time. But the dog's just like that, and you've got that. It's not that it's not like it still feels extremely rough on the dog. The dog gets probably the most violent death of the entire film.
Mary gets stabbed. Father James gets an axe in the back.
But he's already dead by the time he keeps getting the chopping. He's definitely gone. Whereas the dog is squealing the entire time and still getting us while we're literally sculling this puppet dog.
It's so funny.
And
it's like, why do you give the guy who's done nothing throughout the whole film the best moment? Like, why is this guy just
why is he
up?
getting the most violent thing to do as well? Out of all the kids, he's the one. It's like, you leave this film and it's like,
why him?
I think I dislike the guy who fucking rode a dog the most. Like, he was probably the most evil character in the whole film. And I know the dog was meant to be evil, but at the same time it's like, but it's also a hilarious scene because it just looks fucking ridiculous.
It's so funny.
It looks so funny. It's like you can literally feel the person's hand behind the thing, like moving around with the dog.
Shaking.
You can imagine what that scene looked like if you took the puppet dog head off the thing and just watched the hand just rivering around. Because it doesn't look good. But it's also oddly, because it's like a dog, you're like, oh no, like,
oh no, dog,
dog. So it's like that. It's a weird mixed scene. So it's definitely one where I can be like, oh my god, they did that to a dog. Yeah, you don't touch dogs.
Yeah, don't kill dogs.
But
even if they've killed children,
even if though it looks kind of ridiculous, and it is one of those other ones when it goes, this film obviously didn't have the budget for the big special effects they kind of needed. Maybe if it did, it would come off a little bit stronger. But those scenes, like I said, like that opening shot and the dog one, I just think did look quite ridiculous. They did like proper take me out of the moment of, this isn't scary, and it's not nearly as horrific as it could have been if it looked a little bit more realistic. But so right now it's just coming across as weirdly kind of like funny or cringy kind of thing.
It comes off as, I mean, it goes on for longer than you expect.
I mean, I think the third act goes on a bit long. Like, it feels long, like the whole like down in the basement, like, you know, the whole party and the, you know, how many lullabies have we heard him dude singing?
That's one thing I didn't like. I really didn't like the lullabies. I was like, fucking hell, man! Like, this hasn't been in the film apart from the start. Like, he probably just remembered this and was like, oh fuck, I need to get that in there somehow.
I just keep singing lullabies.
And I get like there can be a certain way in which a lullaby can be creepy. Like, you could do it. I'm not saying you can't. But this just wasn't it, man. No. You know?
Well, it like obviously, like, out of all of these things, I think it just is the main problem that you come across with this kind of film is the fact that, you know, anytime you have a script and things like that, it's almost hard to believe that this was fully there and they didn't kind of change things after they'd made it or changed it around in the filming process, because anyone who reads a script, I feel like a script should have a clear kind of structure. Yeah. And you can divert from that and you can try to divert expectations. But honestly, the worst that we ever see in horror films tend to be when they have a structure, they have a setup, and then in the third act, they just throw out all the character development, all of the plot, just in order to try and defy expectations. That's not good film. That's not good filmmaking. That's not good storytelling to just go, we want to get you with a twist, so we're just going to lob everything out that was really important previously, just so we can make a twist. And that is where a lot of horror films go wrong, when they go so like, what the fuck just happened? Yeah. Like, that has nothing to do with what would have worked with the rest of this film. You know, why the fuck is there lizard people? You know what I mean? This suddenly just went from an interesting film.
Someone's watched Midnight Meat Train, haven't they?
I have not watched it. I just still remember that one. I still haven't watched it.
I love that twist. I will not lie to you, man. That is a twist and a half.
But it still is like, it's like, you know, a lot of people would be like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why is this happening? You know what I mean? Yeah. But, you know.
Why is Vinnie Jones feeding lizards underground?
Yeah, and it just is. So in terms of video nasties, the very bloody mauling of the neck and the implication of a child being killed and things like that, you know, and this dog scene, you know, are things. And then, as I said, like, Mary is off so quickly. You know, and then we have a kind of, we think that she's gonna get it, but obviously he can't come. Her boyfriend comes in just in time to save her him, in order to get, you know, a nice little axe in the back of our priest. And that one does go on. She goes at him for a good while. You know, that kind of build up. It's weird because I know she's been held in that situation, but again, without any explanation or any context even for her, it feels like the rage is not like enough that, you know, you'd feel the rage more towards Mary, but him, it feels like you're like, he's done this, but at the same time, I'm not sure that he's built up enough long period of rage, and for the most part, you seem to really like him before, which doesn't emanate in this filled rage that you're now bringing out all into him. Because he doesn't feel like the character that should be targeted for him. And then we even get Mary, even though she's been stabbed and apparently and she's already very ill and diseased. Apparently a knife is not enough to offer. No. Because we still get that last minute, I'm back
for one last fucking have a pop.
Yeah.
One last how's your father? And then...
How's your father?
And then she gets stabbed again, doesn't she? And she's like... You'll never be free of me.
And then it gives you like the quote and goes back into the lullabies. Yeah. And then but that's it.
Also, this is just a little bit of vindication before we kind of talk about any more stuff. The only cast member on Wikipedia who has an actual link to a page is Mr. Kimura, who was played by Jerry Fujikawa. And yes, he was an American stage, screen and television actor, most notably known as the gardener in Roman Polanski's film Chinatown, and he was born in California, as I said. So they basically just said, do the accent, mate. And he died in 1983, so Rip King, you know. Didn't even get to see this film appreciated. He'd have been listening to this podcast.
He didn't get to see this film. I'm not so sure this film is that appreciated, I gotta be honest.
No, but he would have listened to this podcast. He'd have loved it. And he'd have hit that subscribe button and left us a lovely review. I mean,
it was a bad point in time when like they'd only have Chinese actor or of any Chinese descent or Asian descent or
any descent,
and they would be like, you need to do the accent, and I'm not saying that's gone away completely.
No, of course not.
You still get a lot of actors who it has to be like, so you need to be the token guy,
right? Yeah, you're going to do the accent, right?
You're from India. You were born in Britain, didn't you tell? We're going to cast you as an Indian person. But your accent can't be British because no one from India is ever British.
No.
You must do a thick Indian accent.
You have to do the accent.
You have to sound like you're a poo from The Simpsons.
Or
we are not hiring you.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
It's still kind of good. I mean, and they have changed some of that. Even The Simpsons, a poo no longer sounds like that anymore. It's by an actual Indian actor now. They have changed that all around. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it is what it is. At least it's better in some way, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all of those kind of things. But yeah, that's kind of it's like Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's, where he's a white British guy who they put wonky eyes on and made him do some kind of Asian accent that he's meant to be doing,
Korean or
and to be the comedy part of the film, which is always cited as like that is the worst atrocity. That's one of the worst atrocities on film.
Should we have done this?
Should we have done this? Why did we ever think that this was a good idea?
Yeah, whose fucking idea was that?
Whose idea was that? So Madhouse. So the video nasty element, as we've already kind of highlighted the kind of key elements that kind of led to that. I guess there's the themes obviously of animal cruelty, because you can also take that the animal is being used the whole film. We don't get any. He's the spawn of a demon or a devil or something. Like, he's just a dog that's been trained to kill. Yeah, basically,
it's just their nature.
And he's probably had his teeth ripped out. So.
Yeah, it's just Rottweilers.
That's just what it says. It just says that a dog is just mean and cruel, and no matter. Yeah. We have child death, and we have death of blondes.
Which is obvious.
But we have maulings and things like that, and some of those violent themes. But generally, this is probably one of the most tame we've had. Yeah, I think for the video nasties that we've been covering, it's certainly kind of more on the tame side, and it doesn't quite. It doesn't. I do enjoy it. I think it's worth checking out if you want to get through video nasties and you want to watch just some slashers you haven't seen before. I think it's worth watching, but it doesn't quite lean into what I expected from a video nasty or from Italian hoping from Italian. I was hoping for a bit weirder. It wasn't until that was the main reason. That was the main reason, wasn't it? You saw Italian. I didn't know until the opening scene. Okay. I saw the opening scene and I was like, "There's an Italian involved in this." But I kind of feel like it was up until that dog getting his head drilled in. Then I was like, okay, I see why this is a video nasty. But that is the main kind of highlight pointed out. It's weird again because I just don't think for me this was one of the more it was the tamer, blander. This definitely wasn't on. It wouldn't have been on my. If we're picking like ones that I love and ones I don't. There's not been many that I haven't liked. I think actually of the video nasties. We've had some really odd ones. Beast and Heat was terrible. I can't stand up for that one. This isn't as low as Beast and Heat for me. It's still a fairly well-made film. It's still structured. It's got a good score to it. It's got some interesting elements to it. But it's more along there with the real and then you've got the really fucked up ones that seem like they're just like snuff. Or things like that, or even Nightmare in a Damage. Nightmare in a Damage Brain was where they were really odd and weird, and they just didn't really have much structure. And it probably because those ones were exploitative to a max, but also somewhat had interest. It falls here, and then this is like the bland, kind of option, and then there's where they're only making it to be obscene. Some of the films are made where they felt like it's like. You almost wanted to be on it. You wanted to be bad. You heard this list was about, and you were like, "I'm going to fucking just go for it." I'm going to show whatever I can show to do it. And then you've got like Cannibal Holocaust, which is a slightly better film. It's a better made film, but it surprisingly, pushes all the boundaries it possibly could, and it also has some very themes that were real and wrong and should have been. Yeah. So this is definitely one of the like lower kind of if you haven't seen this film, I'm not saying don't check it out. It's it's kind of older than that, but it's not there. And I know that because when you go onto Video Nasties and look them up, you can tell the difference between the ones that are more like, should this have been on there?
Yeah.
And the ones that are like, here's this long list of why this film is terrible. Yeah. This film's only got about one little short paragraph about it, so there's not a lot to talk about of why the movie was prosecuted within the Video Nasties list. So this was originally titled There Was a Little Girl. And it was renamed Madhouse for the video market to make it sound a bit more,
Yeah, I imagine so.
There Was a Little Girl just does not sound like a horror film.
No.
And also, that title still plays up the idea that this was really going to play into the Mary thing,
into the Mary and the nursery rhymes.
So it was released 4 times on video. The first one in America was a watered down, cut and edited version, which I don't know. I'm guessing they just got
rid of the dog.
It doesn't tell me what, so I'm guessing they cut the dog scene
and maybe the child,
so maybe the mauling of the neck, and that's about probably it. Maybe I can think of
a few seconds.
And then that was discontinued, and then it took another 5 years later. So the film's graphic content got it classified as a Video Nasties by the BBFC. It never got a theoretical release in the UK, so it never made it that far. So never saw that light of day. And in the UK, it was pretty much banned straight away, so it was, again, a kind of a black market one. And in 2004, the film was finally passed by the BBFC and was released uncut on DVD, and then released again in 2008 as a Blu-ray. But that's pretty much all that I've got on it.
Yeah.
There wasn't any major... There's no, major, behind the scenes, this was terrible, or there's no, big,
no big
battles...
Scandal.
It was only prosecuted within, basically that it was blocked is the main thing. It was blocked from release, and then finally, like a lot of them, around the 2000s, they finally went, people are watching DVDs of so much worse at this point, you can release that now, finally. But for the most part, it's a pretty tame entry into Video Nasties.
Yeah, I kind of agree with it, I think it is tame. I think it's an enjoyable film, and it's one that, people should kind of check out, because it does have some good moments, but it's a bit of a tame Video Nasty, which does feel
this is the one, and then we've said previously on one or two of them, I think we have said we're questioning whether they should even be on the list. I can't actually remember, but I'm sure there's definitely been one that we've been I'm not even sure they should be on the list before. We've done it once before, I think, and I can't remember what film it was. This probably means it was bland and a bit, a bit not really remember. We remember the ones that probably more gory and over the top and horrible. But yeah, I personally would have at the time been I think if it wasn't for that dog scene, honestly, I think this would have not been a problem. Yeah. And I think maybe this didn't get a UK release, maybe just because they just, it wasn't actually that big of a film anyway.
Maybe. I mean, do you have anything else to say about it, or should we just...
No, that's me wrapping on up.
Yeah, wrap them up I was about to say like a Christmas present.
Like a dead body. Like a dead body. To a basement and then reveal yourself in single otherwise.
Yeah, that's a much better one. Reveal yourself as wearing a turtleneck. So that is our coverage of a very tame Video Nasty. I think if you were going to be prosecuted, back in the 80s, you wouldn't want to be prosecuted for this one, man. I feel you'd be a bit... hard.
If I'm going to get myself prosecuted, I am going for it fully.
I want something full on.
I'm doing every degrading act that I can so I can get prosecuted.
It's kind of pointless. It's almost like, you've got this, you're in court that day, and there's mass murderers and stuff like that, and you've got a parking ticket. Yeah. It's kind of the equivalent of that. But, still go check the film out. It's alright. Hit that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a lovely review. Come and let us know what you thought of Madhouse if you've checked it out. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. And we will see you next week. Take care. Bye bye.